Hi everyone, I'm really excited to explore the topic of simplicity with you all today, and I just want to jump right in. So good design is as little as design as possible. Who knows who said this? Does anyone know? Who was it? Yeah, exactly. So these words come from the German designer Dieter Rams. And he has these 10 principles for what good design is. And number 10 is good design is as little as possible. He says this thing back to purity, back to simplicity. And we often see designers use these principles when trying to explain what good design is. They do it in the classrooms, in the boardrooms, and I have used these principles in my work to explain what good design is. And I'm not just saying that because he's German and we're in Germany. So who am I? My name is Persson, and I'm a communications design lead at IDEO. And what we do is human-centered design. And personally, I'm really excited to explore the biases and the blind spots that we have as designers. So I grew up in Sweden. It's the land of simplicity. It's the land of universality. And a lot of the games and the activities we did as a family was colored by this simple landscape. In a way, life was practical, it was simple, and it was functional. And these are often words that you hear when you think about Scandinavian design. If you Google Scandinavian design, some of the things that you see is that Scandinavian design is characterized by a minimal, clean approach that seeks to combine functionality with beauty. And growing up, I was surrounded by this mindset. So naturally, when I became a designer, the whole idea of less is more quickly became sort of my personal motto. I was designing logos, visual identities, and book covers, but I was doing it all with this idea of less is more in mind. And I used to believe that design was about simplifying the complex, and by stripping away all the details, we achieve these ideal user experiences. In a way, I used to believe that simple equaled beautiful. I say used to because today I would love to explore this other side of simplicity, and it's a less beautiful side. So what do I mean when I say another side of simplicity? It comes to life in 3 distinct ways. The first one, and I'm a little bit in the way. The first one is how simplicity strips the world of culture and creativity. The second one is how simplicity hides complex systems just below the surface. And the third one is how simplicity reduces human experiences to stereotypes. So let's dive into the first one. Simplicity strips the world of culture and creativity. So we can't talk about simplicity without talking about minimalism. It was a concept that was first seen and heard of in the 1950s. And often we heard words like truth and harmony when we talk about minimalism. In recent years, we've seen a lot of trends around minimalism. We've seen Netflix documentaries. We've seen books like this one from Marie Kondo around the life-changing magic of tidying up. And we've seen these trends around capsule wardrobes that tell us that if we simplify our wardrobes, we'll be happier and more peaceful people. In the field where I started my career, graphic design, we've seen brand identities simplify their overall look and feel. These are a couple of different examples of how brands have become, in a way, more simple, but also more alike one another. And that's the thing about minimalism. It promotes this world of sameness, making no room for individuality. Take a look at Scandinavian interior design, for example. It feels anonymous. It feels like there's no trace of any human living there. And often, there's no trace of the local culture that you find yourself in. You can take an IKEA kitchen, you can fit it anywhere, it can be for anyone, because in the name of simplicity, we're all the same. I remember reading this article a couple of years ago called The New Maximalism, and it's from Vox. And it talks about some of the negative aspects of minimalistic design. The article explains that by focusing on minimalism, we create this world devoid of ideas, cultures, and expressions. In a way, it's telling us that we all have to fit inside this box. And it's a very elitist box where very few people fit without reducing themselves. The article also explains how big and loud things and big and loud personalities are seen as wrong. So when it comes to how simplicity strips the world of culture and creativity, we can also say that even though minimalistic design looks clean and spacious, it doesn't give space to different kinds of people to live and to thrive. And that takes me to the second part, and that is how simplicity hides complex systems just below the surface. Like I mentioned, I used to believe that design was about simplifying the complex. And by doing that, we create these frictionless experiences. Good design is frictionless. It's invisible. But when we say that we also have to ask ourselves, for whom is it frictionless? Rua Benjamin is a sociology professor at the Department of African American Studies at Princeton University. Her work focuses on the relationship between innovation and justice, specifically focusing on race and technology. And she's written about the problem with simplicity. I recently read this book called The Black Experience in Design, and there, Rua Benjamin wrote the foreword. And she talks about how often the technology solutions that seem simple actually hide a social structure that they all depend on. So what do I mean by this? We can find, order, and enjoy the meal of our choice without even leaving our couch. And it gets to us fast and simple. The apps strip away the complexity, and it also strips away the humans, and we're left not having to think about it. But less friction for some humans, often us, often means more friction for others. There are gig workers, fruit pickers, and a supply chain of people who are making sure that our food and our clothes gets to us fast and simply. When things are so simple, it's easy to ignore the humans working tirelessly behind the scenes so that we can stay comfortable. And when we're ignoring this, we're also complicit in the human rights violations that are taking place. For example, the poor working conditions for gig workers, or the pesticides that are leading to cancer for fruit pickers. Or most recently, we've seen a lot around the horrible factory conditions for the people that are bringing us our fast fashion. So when it comes to how simplicity hides complex systems just below the surface, I want to summarize by saying this. Because of simplicity, we're never forced to reflect on the social structures that are needed for us to take part in a frictionless experience. And that leads me to the third and final part of this not so beautiful side of simplicity. And it's how simplicity reduces human experiences to stereotypes. And this is an area that's really close to my heart. In the work that I do at IDEO, I'm a communications designer. So my job is to tell the stories of the people that we talk to. People are like onions. We have layers. And we can all make people cry. So people are full of layers and feelings. But as designers, often we lose these layers as we try to fit people into these nice frameworks, or we try to create these universal personas, or we try to summarize things on post-it notes. And while simplifying might feel good in the moment, it can lead to problems in the long run. And I would love to talk about an example around this. Who's seen this symbol before? Who recognizes this symbol? Yeah, so pretty much everyone. And this is the international symbol for access. And it was created in the 1960s by a Danish design student. We often see this simple and clean visual as a representation of improved access. It's easy to spray paint on pavements, or we see it on bathroom signs. And this symbol, it helps raise awareness for accessibility. However, it also creates problems in the long run. And what do I mean by that? So many disability advocates have explained how this simple symbol gives a very narrow view of what it actually is like living with a disability. Because many disabilities are invisible. They don't relate to mobility. They might be around vision, they might be around cognitive, or they might be around hearing. And sometimes it does relate to mobility, but it doesn't require a wheelchair. For example, somebody might be struggling with chronic pain, and they need access to disability accommodations, for example, like parking spaces or restrooms. So what's the problem? The problem is that a lot of the times people who are living with an invisible disability actually experience hostile behavior from the public when they're trying to use these facilities, because the public's perception of what it means to be living with a disability is colored by this simple symbol of a person in a wheelchair. And that's the problem with trying to use simple symbols or stories to communicate. I would love to talk about one more example of this, and it comes from a TED Talk called The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. This is a really amazing TED Talk about storytelling around simplification. And in the talk, she says this: the single story creates stereotypes. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. So what does it all mean when it comes to how simplicity reduces human experiences to stereotypes? Groups and people are so much more than a single story or symbol. The layers of the onion are endless, and peeling them back will help people grow. So let's recap the three different areas. We talked about how simplicity strips the world of culture and creativity. We talked about how simplicity hides complex systems just below the surface. And we just talked about how simplicity reduces human experiences to stereotypes. So now, I would love to start dreaming of a different, more vivid future together with you all. So what if instead of practicing reduction, we practiced expansion by adding boldness and colors to the work that we do? What if we got curious about the complex systems that are powering these seamless user experiences? And what if we created space for people to share their full stories? And what if we did the same with our own story? And what if we applied these principles to the biggest design challenge of them all, which is our own lives? Let's travel back to Sweden. Like I mentioned, I was surrounded by simplicity, by functionality, and by practicality. Life was simple in a way. But life was also emotional, like everybody's lives. And that's the thing about life. Life is not simple. Life is messy. Because even if we try to Marie Kondo our homes or dress according to these capsule wardrobes or live by the principles of minimalism, it doesn't protect us from heartbreak, overwhelm, and disappointment. These really big feelings that are anything but simple. So, is there a way for us to let go of simple and embrace contradictions and complexity? Now, I would love to explore an exercise with you all that has helped me a lot to do this. So you have a piece of paper and a pen, and I will explain what we're doing, but keep those handy. So it's a tool called Venn diagrams. It's contradicting truths towards collective liberation. They were assembled by artist Rachel Schregies and teacher M. Eisen Markowitz, two queer white Jews on Turtle Island. And like I said, in a few minutes, we're going to create our own, but I'm going to explain what they are. So a Venn diagram is a diagram of two statements that appear to be true and appear to be contradictory. Through Venn diagrams, we can embrace contradictions and complexities. Instead of wishing that things would be simple, we can hold these different truths all at once. And what does it look like? Like I said, there are two contradicting statements, one on each side. They're both true, and there's no overlap. These are a couple of examples from their website. So, for example, we might feel like work is so important right now, but we also might feel like, who gives a shit about work? We might feel like, I miss working with friends and colleagues in the office, but I also love working from home. These are two contradicting things that we might be holding, and it's okay. It's okay to hold these things at once. So I would love for us to create one around simplicity, because as a Scandinavian designer, for me, simplicity still makes me feel calm. But simplicity also makes me feel like I have to be perfect. So I would love to take 2 minutes for everybody to create their own Venn diagram around simplicity. And I hope today that I've been able to show this other, less simple side of simplicity. And I hope that moving forward, we can all embrace in the contradictions of the world together. I'll be around after. Would love to chat and also on the interwebs. Thank you all so much.